It is cozy season and we are making an Italian classic. We are doing delicious Italian wedding soup and you are going to love it. It's actually one of the easiest soups in the world to make and it is so comforting. Everyone loves it. I'm gonna add some tortellini to mine because, I mean, why not? You traditionally don't add anything, but if you want to, you can add like a ditalini, little shells, whatever your heart desires, but I'm gonna add tortellini because they're delicious. In my Dutch oven, I've got some olive oil. To it, I'm gonna add my onions, carrots, and celery. And I'm just gonna let that saute just for a bit, not too high of a temperature. I'm not looking to caramelize anything because I don't wanna take a lot of color. I don't wanna grab a lot of color. I just kinda wanna soften them and get those aromatics just bloom. But in the meantime, while that happens, we are gonna work on the meatballs. Now, I'm doing chicken meatballs. I love them. They're light, they're delicious, they're tiny, they're just very yum. I'm gonna add some ground chicken to a bowl. To that, you're going to add, I do equal parts. This is some Romano, but you can use Parm and some breadcrumbs. You can do equal parts, so you can do more cheese, less cheese, whatever your heart desires. You need 1 egg. You need a good bit of salt. I'm gonna grab some black pepper. And then anytime I'm working with ground chicken, ground turkey, anything super lean, I like to add just a drizzle of olive oil, about a tablespoon of olive oil. I feel like it plumps up that very lean protein and gives it really goodness, a good flavor and a little bit of fat. I'm gonna grate in a clove of garlic. When it's grated, remember, it's really sharp. And then we need to chop up some parsley. Parsley from the garden. The stems are so unbelievably thin that the very thin stems, I just add them right in there and just finely chop it all up. Also gonna grab about a tablespoon of my garlic and herb seasoning, and now using your clean hands, you're gonna come in here and you're gonna mix everything together and you're gonna go ahead and roll meatballs that are so teeny tiny. And what really helps do this, especially when you're working with ground chicken or ground turkey that can be really wet and like just not the easiest because it gets all sticky to your hands, have a bowl with some cold water in there, like just cold from the tap, and then just occasionally take your hand, rolling around in that water. It keeps the meatballs from sticking to your hands. And go ahead and roll out teeny tiny little meatballs. Place those on a plate. You can make them as small or as big as you want. I usually start really small and then they get bigger and bigger because I lose patience. Just gonna roll them around and then they'll be ready to be poached into that broth once it's ready, which it's not ready yet. I'm gonna soften those up a little bit more, then we'll add the stock. Veggies are ready. Add in your stock. I'm just using, my better than bouillon and some water. And then you're just gonna bring this up to a boil. Once it's up to a boil, we're gonna add our meatballs. But right now I'm gonna finish doing my meatballs. I'm about halfway done. So I'm about halfway done. They're still tiny, so I'm very proud of myself. It's so worth it too, because then every spoonful has a tiny meatball, a tortellini, some spinach, some carrots. It's just so good. It's so comforting too. It's really the perfect thing to do with your kids. This is one of the very first things I learned to make with my nonna and with my mom. I didn't know what the ingredients were on the inside, but I knew how to roll a meatball by the time I was 6 years old, and I was very proud of that. I could roll a meatball and I could roll a gnocchi, so that I was very proud. And that repetitive work that I think it makes the kids feel like they're really involved. In reality, you're just making them do something that you can't stand. I'm just gonna go ahead and finish this up and wait for that to come to a boil. My broth is just about up to a boil. It's at a simmer. I'm gonna go ahead and drop in my meatballs. Now, I am a fan of searing your meat before you add it to a soup or a stew. But in a case like this, in a soup like this, the meatballs are just gonna become plump and soft and succulent and delicious, and they're not really here to provide a lot of texture. I just lost one. So here I want them to be poached low and slow. Even though they're really small and they cook up in 5 minutes, I'm gonna slowly just simmer this for 45 because I want those meatballs to be so tender and so succulent and delicious. And the flavor in the meatball, the cheese, the garlic, the herbs, is all going to infuse throughout the broth. So pretty perfect here. If I were to do this in a slow cooker, which you totally can, please just make sure that you are sauteing those aromatics first, because you want to develop just enough color and just enough fond at the bottom of the pot to add that really good layer of like richness to the soup. I'm going to add these in, and I'm going to just simmer uncovered on low about 45 minutes or so, and then we move on to the next step. My soup has been slowly simmering for about 45 minutes now. If I were to make this for a whole family tonight, there's just 2 of us, I would go ahead and add my tortellini to that boiling soup. But this is a really great learning, portion here. If you're only cooking for a few people, don't add all of the pasta component to your soup until you're ready to eat it. Because when you add pasta to your soup, it's just gonna swell, and you can't freeze it, you can't refrigerate it for a long time, because as it sits in the liquid, the more soft it's gonna get, the more it's gonna swell. So what I did is I took some of the soup, put it in a smaller pot, and I'm gonna go ahead and add my tortellini. These are 4 cheese frozen tortellini. I'm gonna go ahead and just add them in and wait for those to float and become really nice and tender. And then we're gonna go ahead and add one more thing to this once the tortellini is like 1 minute shy of being done. But like I said, you can take the soup up until the point where you would add the tortellini. Don't add it in, let it simmer, then bring it down and just like let it cool completely, and then you can freeze it. And then you can take out portions of it as you need it, and when you go to reheat it, that's when you add your pasta, that's when you add your spinach, and just brings it right back to life. So once that's done, we'll add our spinach. Tortellini is about done. Go ahead and add in your fresh baby spinach. I'm gonna just turn this off because just the residual heat of the soup is gonna do beautiful, wonderful things. And then I always like to add a little bit of parm, pecorino, whatever, directly into the soup. Let that really bloom. Let that flavor really just get in there and coat every bit of that broth. And it's spectacular. It's simple, it's home food. It's not the kind of food that most people would find very exciting. It's certainly nothing doesn't look show-stopping. But if you grew up in an Italian household, then you know any soup, especially with mini meatballs, and especially with tortellini is something to be celebrated. Look at how gorgeous this is. That broth is spectacular. Those mini meatballs are so sweet and so luscious and so tender and just so sublime. It's making my mouth water. My nonna would say, no soup can be served without freshly ground pepper on top, and he would be correct. And my dad feels the same way, so listen, I don't part from what people have done for so long. I'm gonna just go ahead and take a meatball. I'm gonna cut it in half just because it's gonna be so hot. It's so tender, it like falls apart. It's gonna be so hot though. Worth it, but hot. It literally like melts in your mouth. It is so delicious. It's tender, it's yummy. Give me a little tortellini, a little spinach. The broth is really good. That is comfort in a bowl. It is my childhood. It is all things good and cozy. It's the best. Go to laurainthekitchen.com for the written recipe. I hope you enjoy spending time with me, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Meatball.